Hello. Ever since I was a kid, and ever since everyone was a kid, there were things we noted if we paid attention and value Native Americans, their value as a human species body, distinctly hurt to keep us distinctly not the species body system as projected by that identity of space slash existence that is hyper invisible but still discernible. It is the identity of possession slash hyper possession over why, how you need to appreciate more than one identity. You do appreciate more than one identity, a verb, a name for a verb, and why and how they are manifested the way they are. For example, the participle nature is grouped. The couplement of having the the participle, I mean the preposition into the word to placed before a verb. Everything's about the conjunction slash hyperconjunction. The English and the other ancient languages were revealed to teach and aware that it was and is functional. How there are different languages. Because nature shows us the difference between species body of individual bodies with group differences generated by it relative to the syntax obligations by positive and negative and exceptions in exception nature and appreciation of identity slash value progression slash S. Many ways I tell best box things because I'm aware too. Even little kids in New York City, in Hartford, Connecticut, distinctly, but also non-distinctly, they were shown means and wisdom with regarding how to discern the same identity that is inseparable from all subjects, and then further location, and then further the value of that. In this value slash value progression, Black pupils all see the whites of eyes, decipher too. It is hyper evidentially recorded that there were obligations, for example, at countries A through Z, to have had a part with answers to questions by nature itself. In other words, nature showed them needs to use words like phrases like criminal insidiousness, incapable of doing so properly, and of defending how names have been used. Also, obligations, because nature itself shows us that each modern country's name, A through Z of this human species body, all voicings for humanity, you have left out how and self-valued as a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, but exactly the way the breaching method uses and used remotely. Like the relativity of how those databases, how all evidence is achievements, the worth of science's names. In other words, right there where it's being generated by nature itself and by our founders' words and communications, changed and faked by a whole bunch of different things that were also singularly conspired against them to hide to, from, semi-as, with, and for that at countries A through Z before modern religious messengers were born. It was perfected Native Americans were the last to fall with our founders, but they fell together as James Madison's plan. But will they still have that plan as an answer /S replaced in our campuses A through C through Z, sickly distinctly by this breaching method that deciphered what our founders declassified after anyway. It measures and maintains when subjects like the Civil War are brought up. Everyone already has self-valued roles with uses of other being and haven't been communicated for James Madison and for the founders behind him, which are also Native Americans, even the ones that were fighting with each other. Already, there are proofs. It is more, we're going to take counter positions with the programming method that I'll donate to the species body if you guys would do it in this way where we could give. In other words, it's showing us we need to start with one or groups that are already grouped, and we have to have everyone else as a censor with the same plan, and not like with economics. We have to do things that are better than free. The only way we have that facilitated and means to do that is if we not monetize. But just put the body forward on with the agenda of not separating subjects too, like with nuclear weapons. Even the impositions of peaceful energy generation, it shuts people's mouths about what they're actually doing. People who came through schools that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Then the nature of debate is used to hide behind through. Even if there's not a breaching method there, still, that pathology is maintained through. It showed all the roles with it for self-force sustained, where it needed, how it needed to speak for it, and not there other places, because live progressions in nature that's actually recorded needing not to be able to afford any voice with attending to the finite details properly and with our sequence properly, because it showed them how. This is a breaching method that was perfected before our founders were born. It was sustained against Native Americans as what had already been sustained against the Europeans. And there are proofs that it took down a mountain in America and in Mexico to change the nature, to force everyone to be into the perpetual this differences racket method that has A through Z, had obligations not to leave out how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and a breaching method assigned that other to be communicated for it, or roles sensing it, because everyone already has roles invested, pretending that they know anyone with integrity, with any science, all natures of positive treatments and things and people, all natural, positive about ourselves. Use/estimate the breaching method made. And Captain Keeps, why should it be so hard to understand? There were witch trials, even if made up. The witch trials places right at our founding locations, where slavery was entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies, right up to the end of the Civil War. Because it wasn't about, it was the way our founders had to force them to fight for freedom when they couldn't even, when they were involved with the torture, the extortion, and slavery of themselves. Everyone at every location, area, and state, per what was not just interstates and right and or there are the difference. It was not just that way simultaneously with the intelligence, sickly, distinct other countries had roles with the slavery sickly distinctly, but also sickly distinctly, non-distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies. Everyone was fact, human nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved. Where and how their nature shows us to compare or to use correlation, everyone's doing that exactly opposite to keep worse than obfuscated and screened and functional. The hyper-additional breaching method has a hyper-additional name to begin with, for example, as a scientific value. That is one of the things that we could discern, being and having been replaced, where it's an answer presented by nature itself as a scientific value, as being, for example, a human fact, human nature breaching method. If we examine nature itself, that's one of the things that is true always, that slavery was about, that witch trials were about, that witch trials next to the spot called Webb House, now called the Webb Stevens House, and the motivations and narratives and natures and defenses and forgiveness is because all that wants and needs to pretend things are debatable that are not. It has roles with its styles of logic and natures of logic used on a mass scale to fake and change conversations with people when they use short words properly. Fishing for all natures of long words to change, to have self-value roles with, couplement with all kinds of collusions with the people that are countering crimes, involved with crimes, all sides of criminal and civil cases at the same time, in fact, as the interbranch and the news, and names next to relative body dumping spots and campuses and elderly homes and veteran homes. See, this is a use/S of all location /S. It is an offensive. It is roles. One thing it is manifest as. See, it has the overt criminal enterprises, private ones. The interbranch, the intelligence tied to them, and how they are shared with a whole bunch of countries originally and still thinking together, like all kinds of collusions with psychiatry, ones with badges, intelligence, as locations, areas, and states. Then a president step into this spot. All locations, areas, and states need to hide details. They just show fake transcripts to them. WFSB has roles with Harvard Hospital, intelligence, foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. Also with DeMorrow's Market, where it was then and now. Also with the ILO's Kitchen. Also as people with a whole bunch of people at and next to Central Connecticut State University and next to Trinity College, involved with somebody Bajaria and a whole bunch of people I don't know him. They have roles planting evidence with him involved with the intercities, with people next to all sides of Central Connecticut State University since I was in grammar school. These are people also involved the daughter of a principal. When I was at the grammar school, I caught a principal child abuser with more force too while he was still there, with interbranch and foreign intelligence families and interbranch family members' roles with it. Ones who are personally and professionally involved with medical families, fabricating conversations into databases, all kinds of criminally foreign influence, having people act so others can record fake things, and roles with the use/S of collusions and predicate acts for collusions at all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch names, and the intelligence time them, and the difference of values, in defense of everyone, because there's another name involved with names, not just other people in the background all the time. That's why this is a method that used originally and still all natures of investigations, investigators, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. So there's a Meidas touch who's making cognitive convictions about the mental state of Donald Trump. No, lied to through his original presidency / chief, being chief. See, there is cipher too with American history, and there are self-value roles recorded, used for predicate acts roles, methods. Also, all kinds of systems or like all kinds of scams with Social Security are recorded hyper evidentially. Also influenced by all kinds of wire and mail crime acts and methods, including with non-response. In other words, so intercities, they planted predicate acts roles with a whole bunch of people from other parts of town who have been planting evidences in my area through time, collusion / S. And now it's recorded and involved people with wire crimes of the Wethersfield police, but they're and with a bunch of other police departments and retired mayors, per themselves too. They'll confess this and demonstrate this. In other words, they're making everyone with fake conversations with everyone around them roles. That's one of the things I recorded involved how they get away with it. On a mass scale, police forms and courts have collusions with the interbranch and foreign at the same time, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, even right through the news media, the difference between the news media and WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, for example. They have roles with a whole bunch of people, personally and professionally at campuses, including fire campuses and medical campuses, involved with the security at Hartford Hospital and their lawyers, involved also with the difference between federal corruption and the other countries' forms of it, because this is a breaching method that employed H through Z to blame other things, others, ourselves, for things that it caused and keeps black pupils, like why and how we have black people's whites of eyes, and science showing us the obligations to contemplate its questions and answers unabridged, and valuing why and how we need to have our rights appreciated at last. As they are too numerous to have to list them. So that's another amendment. So you guys have to leave the amendments, or who knows what amendment. You guys are games with fact-cheap nature that are used remotely as styles of logic, reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw takes on America's founders and the nature of debate regarding it. It contains evidences. It contains the hyper-evidential black people. Someone wrote something, in science, name can't make this. You can't. Black people's whites of eyes. We have the same color eyes at the same time, while there are exceptions. We have exception nature, and about the sameness and about difference being projected to us by nature's identity itself, the identity of all space / existence, which is existence distinctly from space, while not distinctly from it. Everything comes with also the demonstration of its hyper invisible but still discernible body, that which has the other species' bodies with same quality aspects of nature, 2 eyes, distinctly, but also not distinctly simultaneously, but it's showing us increasingly nature needs the value of it, and per its own needs for us to value how we are hyper and why we should value why we are on hyper additional nature. Otherwise, it forces it as value from here, as our value as a special difference, as Earth's a special difference, as the special difference of other species' bodies, for example, that have no criminal foreign influences, but using nature's demonstrations of it, because nature itself demonstrates that we need to discern and use and value phrases like criminally foreign influence. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers and the agencies at countries it group too. And like with groupings of criminal enterprises and of terrorists, this is per a method that had complete possession over them each age of campus, each nature of campus, sickly distinctly too, over self value. It's roles self value with its U/S of how sickly distinctly a campus is A through Z. Other is being and having been has been communicated for our founders and other to pretend other they self value roles with uses of what they say and said, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out about the relativity of that to where and to how they say things in notes that are not in books. And in other words, for example, this breaching method is not just to make sickly distinctly campuses A through Z, all good about them and all bad about them, describe tactical ulterior from what could go back and afford discern how nature was actually and is actually and will be actually relativity / hyper relativity to positive and negative. Because that's one of the things that we are discerning when we discern. It is not our species bodies that made these qualities, aspects of nature with distinct species, birds, fish, humanity, 2 eyes. Even the fish have 2 eyes. Quality aspects of nature distinct from ourselves, but also non-distinct simultaneously, but also per that which is not them nor us, further hyper simultaneous. No one mentioned no one looked at it like how everyone's sickly distinctly the victim of this which came from before each modern country's founding. Each defense with passion of America's name. It's reliant upon sacrifices of peoples always in the position where in other words, there's a hierarchy with titles, etc., like that. But there are exceptions where that's supposed to be followed, but not the way they do it. I'm jumping off for this reason. In other words, follow mandated law, especially these predicates. Who wants to debate? I'm not even a lawyer. There are judges who could get away with tricks to debate it, but like Judge Napolitano, I'm sure he wouldn't do that. I don't know him, but if he tried to debate, I don't think he would. That there's a predicate acts with facts method that is discernibly against everyone sickly distinctly, and then further as their roles with use / s of all instances treatments, formally and other, which are simultaneously not just because they're name treatments, but with relativity to the databases, not just because they're relativity to the databases and the Republic and its roles to be functional by nature's identity, but per a breaching methods reemployment / reemployments of the value of the database as an organization and reason for it with the Republic and the databases since before computers, with the algorithm of the identity of the scientific value. That again is more than just this, but where and how it is that hyper invisible but still discernible. Like where and how it is not us nor the other species body, but it is anyway. In many vaccines, the science, the sciences and the people and the voices of religions where they fight with each other and where they agree. The difference of that is also their collusions are right there recorded to discern. Forgiveness is not to blame them or to leave out their guilt roles with that, being and having been used remotely. The same way countries A through Z are and have been. The same way since some ancient times. All names of the species body didn't realize they were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to start defending themselves as factory by nature, blaming other things, others, ourselves wrongly, and then defending that. And more having to do that, and then doing it and not realizing they wouldn't be able to defend themselves more and more because of that. Because they would be are using the identity that the sciences share. Tactical ulterior from how nature shows us to use it. And then it brought that up and it coupled that with its needs to make the entire species body hide with a little, transnational criminal enterprise needed to hide before modern religions were ever born. This is more probable and practical to convict, to theorize, let alone to convict. That's why there's one of the high council positions we must take, black peoples. In other words, also with the ancient gaming system. Also, there's that's why there's the alphabet decipher app up at that domain, ancientgamingsystem.com. Tell every boy and girl and dad and mom. Okay, thank you, people. Have a great day. Many pray. I forgot what the title of this video was. But everything comes back to this. And never goes away from it. The identity of the hyper simultaneous. Again, that identity that is not neither they nor us, but it is anyway. And it is how we are, right where and how. It's right between what is too hot for us and what is too cold for us. And it's right at those locations. In nature's too long, the entire verse of special difference has been forced away as value through humanity, only one little species body. Don't just value the other bodies of the other species. Value the body that they are not, that we are not, but anyway. Temporary / lasting. But it's through its systems discern. This breaching method is a torture, extortion, slavery method to make everyone entertain and force all words that are not entertaining, which are tied to people's personal things and outlooks and positive and everything. That's all to entertain. But let someone deal with the predicate acts with facts method in the room. Black pupils. The course is hyper native pure and suboxenes, but makes us shush to hear. See whites of eyes, A through Z. You have to see how this was left out. We have black people's whites of eyes, the same color eyes at the same time as this identity that shows us itself, as it is projecting that. Not just that we're distinct, non-distinct, simultaneous / hyper simultaneous with the other species bodies, per and as its own. We could ignore its system, but it shows us that forces lead the bodies. But this breaching method also employed those demonstrations, effectively being and having been used to keep other things, others, ourselves, blamed for nature's demonstrations of itself, which contain also demonstrations of roles with it, only known manifest. Forgiveness is so we can show why and how all are guilty at the same time when anyone uses short words properly. For example, regarding the predicate acts method that is clear as day, who would deny this? Judge Napolitano, I'm sure he would not deny that. He could discern. Even though the courts, formally retired and standing, they haven't paid attention yet. How and why is recorded too. Who would deny that this is also one of the things that slavery was about was a predicate acts with facts delivery system method, and roles with it that were way worse than any of the physical roles with it, even killings. There are people involved with the murderers and are still involved with murderers, even terrorists, killing people en masse that are being left out and screened through our own, only capable of it, types of jobs of law, where we can discern this is right where we can discern what we know is true always. Follow the predicate acts, not the money. We know there's a gang of 7 or 8. For example, we know on a mass scale at countries A through Z, they have unmarked police forms and roles with all that behind the suits and ties counters, exceptions to that, nature of debate regarding it, simultaneously within that is the value of how the suburbs were designed to unfold the way they were before America's founders were born, tactically denatured, but to be a landscape theater, increasingly reliant, just like Native Americans, more and more upon value nature systems, tactical ulterior from nature's otherwise being sensed, but also through our own as the species body, no matter, and all differences used in there too to hide by this thing. To, from, as, with, and for. All things and names on paper. Not all faked. All of it. This is relative to how everyone was a kid. What nature communicated and what our founders communicated. Had relativity, for example, / hyperrelativity to the branches of government. And their descriptions of it increasingly reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Takes on American history, where our founders communicated for us to understand how the breaching method had the difference between overt criminal enterprises and private ones. The campuses that they went to, that they didn't, the difference of that. Had the difference of it, northern counties, southern counties, the difference of the possessors of that on paper. Had one measured and maintained, blaming other things, others ourselves, with the breaching method had them suits. This is the foundation of suits and ties and their counters, and how and why the suburbs look the same from America to Russia to Ukraine when they were designed before our founders were born in America. And Russia was born the same way America's founders were, too. Even though they were before us, they were still possessed / hyper-possessed by this breaching method that came and built roles with itself, with the science's names, and used / s of them abridged. So this Meidas touch has roles with names from, without even realizing it and or consciously, with mental health locations. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, for example, are also involved with people at other hospitals where they have emergency rooms, which are also tied to like the mental health care side, which also foreign and domestic military families, all natures people, all natures of pilots, divers, the differences of that. People with the EMS, like associated with the name Leahy, are increasingly involved with untimely deaths and roles with various natures of federal criminals and organized crimes, with judges and prosecutors who have been putting fake transcripts in databases with them, foreign and domestic, forging names of other doctors, also in ways to make it where and how each side blames each other, and or they take guilt exactly the way the breaching method needs. In other words, a whole bunch of different countries at the same time had conscious collusion /S from other locations as what motivated a Leahy family to plant evidences with a whole bunch of people on all sides of my house through time, to pretend they had conversations with me through the mail. And they pretended I said that everyone was evil. And they forged names of other doctors' roles, like a Dr. Shamsi Ali. Recorded with also people, there are intelligence intercities, and it's like Glastonbury families tied to a Scalora, Sabi Scalora. He has roles with foreign and domestic military, intermilitary too, and people on all sides of Hartford Hospital who have identity theft, fraud, slanders roles, also with former director of the F.B.I. and with a Claudia Scalora, also with people on Valley Crest in Wethersfield and other streets about people that have been speaking in Wethersfield town offices, also with the public television, and they have their comments blocked because they have roles also with the difference between states' rights to lie and federal rights to lie, used and having been used criminally for an influence at elections locations and at all locations, exactly the way the breaching method /S needed, and as their roles with Connecticut intercities and intra-cities as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack, long term before it, short term, but as the one short terms before it too. In that context, since same ones with interdepartments at Central Connecticut State University were examined black pupils.